let's say 12 to 14, this is kind of where more of a, let's say more of a serious transition starts to happen. If your goal, again, remember the caveat, is you're trying to pursue hockey at a certain point. This is where 12 to 14 is kind of where the transitions start to happen. So a little bit of context on this one before you start to roll through the questions here. The two major things that happen between 12 and 14, and a little bit beyond 14 too, would be puberty is the one, and then the other one is body checking. That really changes the landscape. So running through these ones, try to keep that in context as parents listening. Like, those are the two big factors that really change how things run around this age. So kids start to hit puberty, and that separation, the growth curves start to happen, and then body checking completely changes the game. When you're allowed to hit now, everything is different when you're allowed to hit. So I don't know if you want to run through these ones kind of in order, just take them one by one here, or what?
Yeah, well, okay, so 12 to 14, you're getting into what old school we used to call it bantam, like major Pee Wee bantam. And for me, that's when I think, like, if you, I mean, things could still change, but this is where, like, especially if you've hit puberty a little bit and whatever or not, it's there's a big difference in hockey now because some guys don't. So you could get fooled by how good your kid is still, right? If you hit puberty early and the kid hasn't, and all of a sudden you're beating guys up, and then 2 years later you're not. But anyways, this is kind of the area. And if you can't, for a kid that didn't hit puberty and is just small and maybe didn't make a team, that's like one of those things. It could happen. And you could come back the next year and be 6'2", right? So, but anyways, this is the time. Like, if I'm saying, this is where a little bit, like, some training. This is where the jump to maybe a higher level becomes like a more of a, I'm trying to think of the word, more of a appropriate option. Or if you're going to do it, like, it's now, you got to start considering this is the time, because now you got, like, in Canada anyways, you got to for if you want to get drafted and those kind of things, to develop as a 16-17-year-old, it's time to start. And if you don't, you don't, but it's time to start playing at a higher level, if the highest level possible, if you can, and if you can afford it. It's the time. That's number one. That would be the time. And if you don't, you still got time. But I'm just saying, it's probably the time to take a look at it.
So then, what, from the parent perspective, if we talk about expectations or what you're watching for from the parent side? So now you're 12, 13, 14 years old. How does the mentality shift on the parent side of things?
It doesn't.
Watching your kid go through now.
It doesn't shift. It doesn't shift. It absolutely doesn't shift, because you're not playing. All you're doing is you're giving them the vehicle to play. You're looking at, number one is you're looking at your kid's interest in the game. That's number one, and his effort level and his desire to maybe do stuff on his own, and that's what you should be that's what I would gauge as my helping him make decisions.
So where does the actual ability of the kid start to come into this too? So if you're
it starts. Like, I would even say, like, see, I don't want to give the impression that being a good 10-year-old does not matter, because it does to some extent, but it doesn't mean being the best 10-year-old is going to make you a great player, because there's several guys in the NHL where you could tell, like, at 10 years old, like, they have the base skills that they do fairly well. If they keep on that path, they're going to be great players. And there's a lot of NHL players that were the best players at 8 and 6 and 5 and 12, right? So I never want to minimize. It always matters, right? Like, so when a kid's good at this age, it's like, yeah, it comes into play. It comes into play to make a decision. If your kid is like, but the thing is, I'll always take the wins, or like building confidence, over struggling. As a if you're on the bubble, right? Like, so, because roles aren't really defined when you're young. So being a good checker is really, a lot of times it's overlooked by a coach in youth hockey. They want guys that can dangle and go through people. So at this level, like, I look at my kid and say, okay, like, he is one of the top guys in the area, and now I think it's time to move up there if he isn't there already. I think it's important.
Right. So then, in terms of that ability portion of it, though, how does that? Let's say you have a kid that's really good when you're 13. So as the parent, it's easy to start to get like excited about that, you know. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get excited about it, because, like you said, if you have a dominant 13-year-old, like maybe he will be a really good player and get drafted and move on and whatever. But there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of, I think parents can be a little bit naive about what the landscape actually looks like in terms of competition. So it's kind of like recognize the ability without getting overexcited. You know, like I said with the last group, you're trying to keep it kind of even keeled as the parent. Like you're not jumping to I have an NHLer here
Oh,
when
you
they're
can't, you
13,
can't,
right?
you can't. No,
Even if
that's
they are a dominant player.
yeah. Things could change
Yeah.
tell the story. I've seen guys, especially in this age group, like you will see a kid in the 13, 14-year-old range. That's where we're at, right? Yeah, 12 to 14. You'll see kids in that age where you will go, what happened to this kid? Wow, was he good? That's the puberty. That's he's bigger, better. Um, you're gonna think it's the training. It was all this stuff, and it's like, no, it's just simply not no, but the um, the fact that he's hit puberty and grown that much really helps being a good player, fat, bigger, faster. So you just don't want to get fooled by that, right? Um, and you all you want to see is you just want to see your kid compete and play hard. And but there is no NHL guy there yet, not a chance. There's no, you just if he's really good, you can sit there and go, well, I think he's got something here. And then if he likes to do the training and like that's where you can start introducing. To me, that's where it's like a little bit better to introduce some training, 12, 13, 14.
So that was kind of the next question, is
Yeah.
like that extra on ice, off ice stuff. This would be around the time where you start, even the higher end of that though, not necessarily 12, but
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they're
yeah.
like 14, particularly with the off ice stuff. The
Yeah.
on ice maybe a little earlier, but the
So
off ice stuff, it's
I
like
think when you get to that 13-year-old year, I think it's like if you're good and you want to pursue it, I think it's important, not just necessary, but I think it's not necessary, but important that you kind of zero in a little bit on, okay, I would like to pursue this. And if you don't, you don't. But I think it's important to understand, like maybe you get to the gym a little bit, but what does the gym mean? It means it's not, you're not cranking out weights. It's like, it's getting your body mobile. It's getting your body like the body weight stuff or light weights to do proper form that are going to enhance being an athlete. And then on the ice, it's like it doesn't mean you're doing pylons and stuff. It's if you're doing some skill stuff, maybe if you can understand the game a little bit more, but focus on one or two things in your game that you can get better at. It's not critical, but it's like time to start maybe putting a little bit of extra work in.
yeah. The other thing, I don't know if you would agree with what I'm gonna say. We'll see. But I don't know if it would apply now or maybe with the next group when you're like, 15 to 18. But what I'm starting to notice, and I'm more with the junior guys, so it might be a little bit more important, but I'm curious if you think it would be better when you're younger to get this too, is the importance of like having the ice time in the game. So like how important it is to have the development opportunity to be a go-to guy. I am starting to develop a philosophy. Again, it's more with the junior guys, so a little bit older, but maybe it could apply when you're a little bit younger, is if you have a chance to be a go-to guy, how valuable that starts to be, let's say from around 14 and up. I think it's if you can put your kid in an environment, even if the coaching isn't great, even if the team isn't great, I think the ability to play and get a lot of minutes playing for whatever team you're on, that to me is turning into like the most important thing when it comes to developing as a player. I'm seeing it with our junior guys, because a lot of them they ask for my advice on where they should go play, and my default is always yes, like you want to play in a good organization and all that is important. But if you can go to maybe a worse organization with worse coaching, but you get to be the guy, I think that trumps everything. So I don't know if this is maybe I would be pushing it, saying we're at 14 that's important. Maybe it's the next year or the year after. But
Dude, I think it's always important.
yeah,
Okay, so I just had a consult about this, and I explained one of my players. So in this consult, the it was great. I thought it was going to be a wiener question because the way it was presented is my son. Just is basically it. My son played AAA the last couple of years. We're thinking about moving to Double A, so it's like okay, first thing that comes to my mind, and this is bad on me, is that okay, you're getting cut.
Yeah.
So you're trying to, how do I
Trying to
deal with
patch it up.
how would
Yeah.
I deal with not being a great player?
Yeah.
But so anyways, had this consult, and it was like what the circumstances were this. Kid was basically I'm gonna I'll say let's say middle of the pack. He's a middle of the pack guy, but his dad was like, I'm being very honest with you. He goes, there's 5 parent coaches on the bench, and it's just like I don't really care. But my son goes, Dad, I don't want to play for these guys anymore because it's like it's the friends and it's like those guys get all like different treatment and stuff, and I probably get that. It's probably true. Like as long as like the kid's seeing it, and he goes, "I just want to go play with my buds." And he goes, "Like, is he gonna regress? Is he? What do you think about that?" So this is the Cole's Notes version of it, obviously. And I said, "Well, dude, it's your attitude going in, and your attitude as a dad, how you treat this thing, that's going to make all the difference in the world." And he was a great guy on the phone, right? So it's like, okay, so what do you mean by that? It's like, okay, if you go to like obviously he's gonna I said obviously he's gonna get a lot of points, right? He goes, yeah, like he was in the tryout the other day and he goes, he was like flying out there and he had a whatever an opportunity to score and he looked for the pass. And I said, okay, to me that's a if that's happens all the time, it's like it's almost like I don't want people to get mad at me for being too good. Possibly. Right? So he goes, yeah, I think actually that's what it was. I said, yeah, I can see that. Just that's what kids do. So I said, but this is the caveat if you do this. So you're not, it's not going to ruin you. In fact, it's probably going to be good for you because there's never a bad thing for a kid to go on the ice and dominate. It really isn't. I don't care what level it is. I said, people give double A bad rap or a bad rap because it's not triple A. It doesn't mean there's not good players in that level. It doesn't mean that at all. But I said, what your mindset has to be is like, if whatever type of player that he is go there and dominate, like like dominate without any, no apologies, man. Like, and you'll notice that there's still some good players out there. You do have to work hard. The biggest thing that people do is when they drop a level, is they think it's just going to be easy. Or it's a guy going into second, third year of junior, guy that gets stuck in the NHL. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot that I have to be working at 100%. Like I got to give 100%. I got to work my ass off because hockey players are good. Blah blah blah. So I said now I would encourage that. Have the puck as much. I said try to score goals, try to finish hits, like as much as you can. Try to dominate in every way, and then hopefully he's dominating in a sense that he's putting pucks in the net. And he's like, now he's feeling like I got to get my wingers or my centerman or a D, a guy I'm playing with. I got to get him a couple of that. He's working just to do that. That's dominance. Like to help another guy out. So, but no apologies, man. You got to tell him that. Like, no apologies. Go and do it. And then I said, as a dad, when you talk to him tonight, because he's like flipping a coin about it, I said the way you present this to him is going to mean everything. So if you sit there and discourage the double A thing, he's going to react to that appropriately, like or inappropriately, or like I'm saying it wrong. Going, okay, dad's not
in coordination with how you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, dad's not thrilled that I'm going to go to double A, right? And so your kid's going to feed off that. But if you go and sit there, this is what I told him. I said, like, if you tell your kid, you get in the car and you say, you were really good tonight. Like, you look like you had a blast. I'm not lying. You just come out and make the kid flip the script, right? You look really good out there tonight. You know what, son? I actually think that this is going to be a great year for you. Because think about it. You had a good night tonight and you're liking your buddies. And if you go out there and like, but you got to push. If you don't push, this isn't going to be a great thing for you. But I think this is going to be a great thing for you. And I guarantee you the kid's going to perk up and say, okay, dad approves. This is good. Let's go. And if you just keep that tone to it, what's wrong with that? Having the puck all game and being in key situations. So I used as in real world, I've used that with a player that I trained, and I think I touched on it last week, but he was a pretty high draft pick in the OHL. Um, he's in the NHL draft right now. He's going to get drafted pretty high, but he got drafted. Yeah, I don't want to say the rounds. I don't want to give his name up. He got drafted actually pretty very high. Didn't make the OHL team his first year, but they put him in a junior league. So he moved away from home, put him in a junior league, which is not a high quality junior league. So you can look at the numbers and go, okay, yeah, but it's not. It's the shittiest league. But this kid went there and worked, and he in his head or his attitude or maybe his parents did a good job of telling him, or the coaches staff said, like, this is your development and we want you to play like this is the Stanley Cup. So he played in this league and he had a great year. So the following year, so the 2022 season, he was played in the OHL and had a great year, like a great year. So there's a question: if he played, was it better for him to play in the OHL and be like a depth guy because he wasn't playing? They had a really good team, or was it better to him go dominate in a league that he shouldn't be in? Well, there's that answer. So I'm not saying that's the same for everybody, but what I truly believe is it doesn't matter because it's your attitude going in there and your supporting cast attitude, right? So we have like some kids around here that are on the NHL list that they're not playing the OHL, they're playing junior because they're going to go to college, and it's like when you're playing, they're not playing at the highest level, but they're still getting looked at, and it's the attitude going into whatever level that you're playing that determines how you're going to play. And if you sit there and say, well, it's just junior B or it's just double A, and you don't put the work and you don't have the attitude and you don't have the family appreciating the effort and nudging in the right way, then it doesn't matter anyways. But it's very very important that your attitude is good. And then to your point, the question was, is it good? I would say if you can have the puck on your stick all day and score goals and know what it's like to have success, go for it. Because the work ethic to do that at a lower level, like, it's still hard, and it's a mental adjustment because you're the measuring stick. So if you play up here, everybody has to keep up with you. If you move down there, then you blend it in. So
Mhm.
it's like that's a tough job sometimes.
Yep.
So I say all day that's what you do.
Yeah.